Hello, Nate Bailey with the Life Outdoors, and this is another edition of Backcountry Bible Study. And today we're going to show you the difference between general revelation, which is what God's handiwork is and the stuff that every human being has to deal with that they're around, and special revelation, which is His Word. So it means that He spoke into to reveal Himself. And we're going to start with Psalm 19. So let's go there. Psalm 19:1 says, "The heavens declare the glory of the Lord. The sky above proclaims His handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and the night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. The voice goes out through all the earth, and their words are to the end of the world." So basically, if we go back to it, and you guys know all this because you've been there. You've been out on a prairie, say over in Eastern Oregon, and you're listening to all the coyotes howl, and you look up, and the Milky Way is just as bright as could be, and it gets that purple kind of hue in the middle of it, and the falling stars. And when you look at that, you can't just sit there and go, "This was all a part of an accident that came from nothing." And that's what this is saying. Is saying that that declares who God is, and it says that there's speech there. That there's now it's I've had a lot of conversations with atheists, and they say, well, you can't prove anything, and you can't quantify this, and there's data and all these things that they go over, which there's some of that stuff, but all these things that they go over, they have to see proof of this and proof of that, and the reality is they don't even live in that world themselves. But we humans were born with a internal knowledge of the stuff that we see around us had to come from something that was smart to design it. There's nothing that on this earth that comes from nothing. Everything had to come from something. If there is something, then there always had to be something. And when you start looking at the glory of things, when you start looking just at a horse, a horse, his frog, the bottom part of his hoof, when he runs, he has to be able to circulate blood throughout all of his body. And that frog is actually, ask any farrier, if you take and you nick that frog, you could make a horse really bleed, because the main arteries go down to that soft section. So when they run, it actually helps pump blood back up the legs. And that can't just happen. That can't just be one of those things. Or it can't be, nothing plus a million years gets a horse. There's no way that can happen. So that's why we try to get people in the outdoors as the Life Outdoors. We're trying to get people to be able to experience the heat coming off of a fire. The difference in oranges, there are so many different colors of orange in that fire, and the tips of it being blue. We want people to experience this, because this is exactly what this says. Is if more people get out and do this, they're going to have to probably start thinking a little bit more about what's going on in this world and who they are in it. And we believe that if they start thinking this way, they're going to start searching out, and they're going to start looking for the big questions of life. Where did we come from? Where are we going? Why are we here? And what's the meaning of it all? And so this is one of the things that has brought me to know who Jesus is. And it's a weird thing. I can't really quantify it for you. I can't tell you. It's got to be experiential. It's got to be something that you go through and you experience yourself. I can't just give you a set of data points and help you find this on your own. I can't do that. You have to experience it, and you have to go through it, and you have to engage your spirit, which is something that you've been taught you don't even have. So that's the big thing about this. Now, we at the Life Outdoors, we bring you into the general revelation. I mean, when you look at this fire and you look at all the stuff that fire is, you realize how small everything else really is, and how things are kind of strange when you think that this is just a product of an accident. You can't really think that if you've been around this very much. Back in the day when people just got here to Oregon and started making farms and things like that, they had to rely on something outside of themselves for that farm to even exist. They didn't have irrigation, and they had to rely on rain. And all these things made them more in tune with what was going on around them. So they were able to understand that there was a God. And that is general revelation. Now, that only gets us part of the way there, though. Romans 1 will tell us here. Let me turn to Romans 1. But that only gets us part of the way. That only gets us to know that there is a God. But how do we know who he is? How do we know who this guy named Jesus Christ is? There's something that we have to come to, and it's called special revelation. And that's this. This is him saying, hey, look, this is who I am. This is what I did for you. And this is how you should act. This is how you should respond to that. So that's why we bring out the general revelation for you guys, because you all experience that. And most all of you probably think that there is a God because of that. But we want to move you into the relationship with God, because that's actually what you were created for. And you won't find anything outside of in this world that's outside of that that's worth anything, because you were created for that way. Now, this is what God says. He says, for the wrath of God was revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, whom by their own unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain for them. So just even before he speaks to them through the Bible, it's plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived. Now see that word perceived, and we humans have a perception. We need to be able to use it, but we do have a perception. And that's something that's not quantifiable. It's not something that you can measure. And so, but it's more true than the things that you can't measure at times, because God could twist anything that you can measure. But the perception of what he does, it says also the beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord. And what that means is reverence of the Lord, and knowing that he is God, he is the Lord. So have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world. All things have been made so that those are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him or give him thanks to him. So those are the two different things between general revelation and special revelation. Now, when we open up the Bible and we start studying it, that's special revelation, and that puts an exclamation point on the general revelation. So that's Bible study. That's what we're going to do from here on out. Just knowing that there's God is not good enough. You have to follow him as your king, and that is what you're created to do, and that's what he paid for on the cross. And basically, that is the gospel: is that he's bringing you back to him, to where you should be all along, where you belong, and you won't actually live. All the craziness that you see around is because of that walking away from God. But we were created for something much better and much greater. So with that, I hope this helped. And if you guys like this content, we have a website you could go to. I don't know how long YouTube's going to keep this stuff up, or Facebook or whatever, but we do have a website, the Life Outdoors, and you can go over there, and all this stuff uploads to that website. So and of course we're on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps. And tune in next time, and we'll talk more about the special revelation of God.